Hey you guys, welcome back to Our Awakens. This is like a nuanced follow-up to my previous video about Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, where we acknowledge the various struggles that men face due to the programming of the patriarchal system amongst both genders. In this video, we're going to dive deeper into the root of why so many men stay silent or keep their guard up. So oftentimes when we talk about men's mental health, we often blame society or even toxic masculinity, but can we ask the real question of who really enforces it and who are men really afraid of? The answer is men fear men more than society realizes or even dares to discuss.
In our current culture of masculinity, we have an accountability crisis. And most men are fucking terrified of being accountable to one another. A lot of men conflate the word accountability with discipline, and they think discipline is punishment. So when we're thinking about accountability, something that might jump to our mind is I'm accountable to my workout plan, and no matter how I feel, I'm gonna run those 10 miles because if I don't, Goggins is in my ear calling me a bitch. And that's what discipline is, and so I'm gonna be accountable to my workout plan. Discipline does not always mean punishment. Discipline can also just be a feeling of self-confidence that is built through habituating anything. And it doesn't have to be painful and doesn't have to be punishment. However, accountability to other human beings is an act and expression of care and love. And the reason why we're so scared, so terrified, so cowardly as a culture of masculinity is because we are so afraid of being abandoned by men. So many of us have wounds of being rejected by fathers, by boys at school, by friends. We are so starved for masculine love that the thought of telling a brother, a friend, dude, you cannot use the R slur, brother. You're better than that. That is petrifying, because what if you look at me and say, don't be fucking sensitive, and because I said that to you, now you've categorized me as less trustworthy, I'm too sensitive, so you're not going to stop saying the R slur, but you are going to stop saying it in front of me and hanging out with me as much. And God, how scary is that? Because I don't have that many friends. And I like you. And I need my friends. Right? So the same shit is happening in fraternities, at colleges, in high schools, in our fucking families, in our own families. So few men are willing to speak out about the harm that the men we know do. And it's little harms like, yo, stop calling shit zesty. That's just the revised, more appropriate way of the F slur. Stop that. You're better than that. Or it's serious, like, hey man, I know that you punched your wife, or I know that you yell in front of your kids. That's unacceptable. We are scared of being abandoned by men. We are also scared of violence because the code of masculinity dictates that if I disrespect you, you got to square up with me. Conflict with another man is aggressive, and it should lead to physical violence. So I should avoid conflict unless I'm ready to stand on business. And why would I want that conflict to occur with a guy that I do care about, even if he's doing something wrong? So this word accountability is really fucking important. And what does it actually look like in practice, right? It's very important that we reframe this word accountability, and a conversation like that is not confrontational. It is a call in, it is an invitation, it's an expression of care. Hey man, I love you, I really care about you, I think you got a good heart. So when you use words like that, you're not living up to the man that I know you to be. I'd really appreciate it if you stop that. I don't want you to feel defensive right now, but I understand if this is hard. But this is coming from a place of care. I love you, dude. You shouldn't be saying shit like that. Or, brother, it is unacceptable for you to be acting that way in front of your children. I fucking love you. I care about you. So I'm bringing this up. Right? If I did care about you, I wouldn't say it. When you can invite someone using that language, I care about you, so I expect better from you. I love you. That's that love first language, that invitation. It is so much different than, don't say that fucking shit. That's fucked up. Stop it. Don't be an asshole, right? That is how we are all primed to approach these things. But man, you would be surprised if you can be brave enough to just soften a little bit. Like, hey man, I love you. You shouldn't be doing that. Truly transformed everything.
And this isn't about shaming men or making them out to be evil people, but it's about acknowledging the hidden pressure that so many of them live under. Because the truth is, most of the pain that men carry, the mask they wear, and the silence that they keep comes from the fear of how other men will judge them or interact with them.
Oftentimes what happens with bullying is that there is one bully who bullies someone, and then other people around them who are insecure, they don't want to get bullied themselves, and they want to fit in with the bully. So they will join in and start bullying the other person too. And now you have a whole group of people who are bullying one person. And if you've ever experienced this, you have to realize that you are not getting bullied by everybody because everybody hates you. You are getting bullied by everybody because everybody around you is weak and they are unwilling to speak up for what they actually believe because they don't want to get bullied themselves.
And some everyday examples of how men perform their masculinity in order to not lose the approval or the respect of other men can look like. At the gym, a guy could be lifting lighter weights but feel self-conscious about that, and he'll end up going to go get the heavier weights that might not feel like the safest, most reasonable for him to use, just out of fear that other men are possibly judging him for being weak. Or it could look like avoiding mindful groups like yoga and Pilates just simply out of fear of what that might mean for his masculinity in relation to other men, and it might make him seem feminine. Or let's say, for example, in friend groups, they could be laughing about sexist or homophobic jokes, even if it feels wrong, just to avoid being labeled soft, sensitive, or gay.
The way that boys are raised, they are raised to hate women. Yeah. And if they don't hate women, the men hate them. When the guys like to come in my comments and be like, it's not all men, it's not all men, it's not all men. Men do not even check each other. And I keep saying this because they do not. If the men checked each other, we wouldn't have these violent crime stats. If the men checked each other, 4 women would not be unalived every day. You can look at serial killers and see how they operate, right? And just because they're serial killers doesn't mean they're not a good example for this. They slowly build up a resume of crimes, and then they get to the more heinous things, and then it gets worse and worse. This is reality. This is how they operate. They like to see what they can get away with, and eventually they attack women. So the issue is men do not police men from a young age. Boys are literally bullied as children by other boys to hate women, and if you stand up for women, you are bullied. This is how society functions. I fucking hate it when they come in my comments and they say that it's not all men, but these men are not correcting men.
Two things can be right at the same time. Maybe these are the decent guys that survived the persecution growing up without being what some would say corrupted. So they just learned that staying out the way means no trouble. Or it could look like never admitting them feeling anxious, depressed, or even heartbroken when other guys are rejoicing about their side conquest and being unbothered. So it's kind of just like, damn, like my other friends aren't really emotionally available, because let's be honest, that's what it is. They are not like showing any feelings or making it seem like, oh, I don't care about her, I'll go get another one. Whole time you know you heartbroken, but you're gonna front because you don't want to seem like the oddball in the group. Or let's say, for example, in relationships, it could look like being emotionally distant with his partner publicly so that his male friends don't call him whipped or soft. Mind you, whole time he's in love with the girl, but I can't look soft in front of my friends, so I gotta treat you like, you know, not so like close to my heart. And my thing is, your friends could low-key be looking at what you got and wish they have it because they want to be in love too, but whole time you over here worried about performing for them. It's just like, and to further elaborate on that, that can look like not openly showing affection, whether it's not hand holding or kissing, or even like avoiding compliments because you don't want to be seen as like soft because your friends don't know that side of you. But guys, y'all be putting on fronts for y'all friends, y'all be in love behind the scenes. Or it could look like downplaying his kindness and his sensitivity to appear tough because his friends don't know that soft side of him. And the craziest thing I've heard of is guys, once they get around their friends, they start being disrespectful towards their women because it's like they want to keep like this tough image around them. And it's just like, first of all, you deserve to be single after that, because you're not about to treat me different in front of your friends because you want to look a certain way. And to be honest, at that point, I think it's worth really asking yourself, like, which gender's attention do you want most? Or in the scenario of asking for help, that could look like men avoiding therapy while their friends are advising them like, oh, you know, real men figure it out, you got it. So even if they know that they might want that extra support for a person to be that mirror to them, because of how other guys downplay that to them, they would just opt out of it to conform versus actually evolving. Or it could look like hiding their financial struggles or their life stresses around their male group because they might fear mockery or even just losing their status within the group. And this usually comes from the fear of failure because most believe that it undermines or even just threatens their manhood. And then in the scenario of like parenting or family life, a lot of fathers might not tell their sons, I love you. Oftentimes because their own fathers or male figures in their lives didn't tell them that, even though those very men might acknowledge that they wish they would have heard it more. But because of how they feel like they turned out as a masculine man after all of that, Without their ego acknowledging their toxic ways, they then see it as, well, I turned out this way, so maybe it's of my child's best interest to also experience the same thing that I did so that they turn out the way that they did. But again, we're also acknowledging that most men don't allow their egos to step out of the way to really see reality for what it is and how it could be better. And I find it interesting because those same men would understand that their daughters need that. So it's like, what makes your daughter any different than your son? You get what I'm saying? Like, a child is a child and they still should be raised on love, and you shouldn't deprive them of that because you feel like, well, I didn't get it and I turned out fine, so you also should be fine, but you understand that your daughter needs it. So it's just like, the math don't be mathing, but hey. Or it could look like holding back tears at funerals or even just after loss to stay strong for the family, especially around other men. And then in the scenarios about like their hobbies or even just their social media presentation, a lot of guys would avoid posting about certain hobbies like art, writing, dancing, and singing because they feel like it's not masculine enough. But instead, you'll notice them post things like sports, cars, money, and muscle photos that they feel fits the group's male-coded approval. And quick sidebar, I always felt like the guys who aren't really showing up authentically as themselves, but they only embody the masculine persona, they oftentimes have the most boring social medias ever. Like, they don't really showcase any type of real personality. It just be guy stuff. And it's just like, damn, like, is there anything more to you? And I feel like that's a scary thing about social media. And I get it, right? People don't want to be an open book on social media, but it's just like, you can see a clear difference between like how women post and how guys post. And I'm not saying all guys, because there's some interesting guys online, right? But I mean in the sense of like, when it comes to social media, I feel like, at least from my perspective, just saying hypothetically, if I were interacting with people on there, because I really don't, but it's just like, if I were to interact with you, I want to know before I really get to interacting with you that you're somebody that I feel like is safe to interact with. And what I mean is, because I'm authentically myself, I'm posting things that you can get an idea of who I am, my character, and just the type of person I am. So you could get like a pretty good read on just like, okay, is she a good person or not, right? And I'm not saying you should always just go by that. Versus if you're a person and you're not really posting a lot and I have to go based off of what I'm seeing, I don't really have like a good read of you. So you could be anything behind the screen and I won't really be able to know that until I interact with you. But because you could get like a better read on me, I feel like people study you online and they sometimes try to reflect you back to you so that you like you, but it's not really them. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, let's get back to it. Or in the scenario of their appearance and their identity, a lot of guys could avoid wearing certain colors, clothes, jewelry, or haircuts that they might like because they fear being teased, misjudged, or even mislabeled. And God forbid you're a guy who actually cares about himself enough to take care of himself, his hygiene, and just his looks. Because in case you didn't know, that's not just like a ladylike thing to do. When you love yourself and you value yourself, you want to take care of yourself.
This video is for the younger guys who are seeing like the TikTok boy meta. So I'll show you some pictures of some TikTok boys. Basically, a TikTok boy is kind of like this skinny, tall, cute femboy looking guy with like cute kind of gayish kind of hair, puts on like makeup or skincare or something, dresses like fashionable.
Is anyone gonna tell him that these guys have more masculine faces than Hamza? Like, look at this guy. Look how sharp his jawline is. Look how strong his cheekbones are. This femboy has a way more masculine skull than Hamza. This is a trend I noticed, where if a guy has like good quality skin and like nice hair and like whatever, that he's feminine. No, that just means he's healthy. A lot of the pretty boys that women like often have masculine dimorphic features, but also have good health markers. A lot of men kind of want to like confuse you, associate health markers and looking healthy with being like a femboy, but no, that's not the case. A lot of these guys have more dimorphic skulls than Hamza. Sorry, but like that's just the truth.
But even as a young girl in middle school, high school, I've noticed that the guys who do take care of themselves tend to get like, I don't want to say like bullied, but they kind of get like picked on, called like the pretty boy, or oh, you like being in the mirror more than girls like being in the mirror. And I get like that aspect of those guys, but like, I mean, sometimes y'all really be dragging it. Like, a guy guy just wanting to, say, get a manicure and keep up with his nails, or, you know, like he likes to keep his hair cut looking all good. Or let's say if he's like a fashionable guy and he has a really good eye for fashion and he knows how to put things together, people will sometimes see that as like a, you gotta side eye that, but it's just like not everything needs to be side eyed. Sometimes people wanting to take care of themselves, that's different from like a person being feminine and you wanting to call them something that they're not just because they want to take care of themselves. Or it could look like keeping silent about their insecurities like body image or hair loss, or even in older age dealing with ED and not really wanting to discuss that and having a safe space amongst other men. And lastly, the scenario about their coping mechanisms, where a lot of guys would choose drinking, smoking, and aggression over vulnerability because softer coping mechanisms like acknowledging their feelings or opening up emotionally feels feminine, oftentimes resulting in using sarcasm or humor to cover up their genuine sadness just to appear like unbothered in front of other men to avoid looking soft or too emotional. And the truth is, many men don't fear being vulnerable with women. And I'm not saying that that's not the case unless a woman is giving them a safe space and they feel comfortable enough to do that, but it is not as much fear that they feel like compared to the ridicule and the fear of rejection that they might face from other men. Because in their world, being seen as soft can cost them the feeling of belonging, their respect, or even safety.
Talk about toxic masculinity for a minute. Usually a man who is toxic, a man who is alpha, is nothing but a man who is insecure and refused to do healing work that he needs to do from his childhood or past relationships. That man is overcompensating for what he truly feels on the inside, because that man refuses to feel his emotions. He's too scared to actually do the deep dive that he needs to do to heal. So he creates this persona of this alpha, be it muscles, money, whatever it is. He creates this persona to make him feel better. That man is a ticking time bomb. I used to be that man. I used to be a ticking time bomb because I wanted the world to know that I was an alpha, that I was the man. I was big and strong and I made money and I was always in control. Truth was, I was never in control, because I did not have control of my emotions. I did not have control of who I was as a man. So when we talk about toxic masculinity, instead of hating these men, we need to have understanding and compassion, because they are some of the most damaged men on the planet. Because a man who can actually share his emotions and feel his emotions is on the right track to true masculinity. True masculinity is being able to open up, to share, to actually get things off your chest in a balanced manner, and to actually look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm going to be my most authentic self. I'm going to show the world who I truly am, and I'm not going to show the world this persona of what I want them to see. I'm going to show them the real me. That's true masculinity. So for all the men that want to share toxic comments on my post, go ahead. I'm not mad at you. I actually have compassion and understanding for you, because I used to be right where you are.
Girls are supported from birth. Boys are neglected at adolescence.
And let's touch on that adolescence part, because I have young boys in my dance classes who honestly, when they're young, boys and girls are not very different. They touch on each other, they talk to each other, they talk about their feelings, they cry, they're emotionally intelligent, they pay attention to how others feel and think. And when they don't, it's usually around that 6, 7 age. It's usually around when they get to the first or second grade and you tell them not to do something, or adults tell them that something is not okay. Because young boys will cry. I cried for so long. I think I cried until I was like 10. And then one day my dad was like, yo, look, men don't cry. Men don't cry. And so I stuffed it deep down inside myself and I buried it deep. And one day you realize that like you have no longer any attachment to your emotions. You don't feel the same way you once felt, because it's so buried so deep inside you that like, why would I ever act on my emotions? Everything is purely logical, because if you didn't act on your emotions, then the world is just a better place. When in reality, most people react with their emotions. They just aren't allowed a safe space to do it comfortably, right? And so you get aggressive teenage boys. You get suicidal teenage boys. You get people who don't know how to deal and process their emotions into adulthood. And so you get men, young men, who literally are taking their feelings and emotions out on teenage women, adult women, and they carry that on throughout their entire lives. It starts when people are young, and they grow into the types of people that you raise them to be. Please, take your babies into consideration. Ask a boy today, ask a young boy what they think about women, what they think about girls. And it's very different than what you might think. Check on your younger brothers, check on your siblings. I'm so serious.
Yes, young men are not doing okay. So I speak to around 5 to 10 men on average on a weekly basis in my one-to-one consultations. And something I've just had to acknowledge is that men, especially young men, are extremely emotionally stunted. And it probably isn't a surprise to most people that know the history of men and masculinity, especially like, let's say 20, 30 years ago. It was very understandable for men to be very emotionally stunted. That was a norm. But nowadays, in a society where, we think we're more progressive, we think that, we understand emotions and how men should display emotions more, it seems like not much has actually changed. And I think a massive part that contributing to this is the fact that we've started to understand that masculinity is not just one thing. And I think that's a good way to start. But what has happened is that instead of ensuring that men know how to be healthily masculine, we just label masculinity as just bad, hence, toxic masculinity. And I think due to this, a lot of young men have been raised by single mothers, unfortunately, who have, told them that masculinity is bad and that being masculine is bad and being a man is dangerous. And due to this, a lot of men never get in touch with their masculine side, and they just end up being these effeminate sort of kind of just ghouls who just kind of skate through life just doing the bare minimum. And of course, it's not just women's fault. There's also a lack of, healthy male role models in society. I'll be honest, like the fact that Andrew Tate became the face of masculinity for a couple years back in the day is insane. And I feel like people like him, along with other, red pill and high value men, rhetoric, all that kind of stuff, has really poisoned a lot of men's minds. Like, I can't tell you how many young men I've spoken to who've literally said to me that they should not open up because men should not open up. It's dangerous for men to open up because people will use it against them. The fact that this has been ingrained in the mind of young men who potentially haven't even had this experience is actually insane. So what we have to acknowledge is that the inability for men to open up is one of the major factors to, male life endings, for male abuse, etc., etc. The fact that men do not feel like they have agency to their own emotions, as all humans should be very alarming. But I'll be honest, there's not enough being done to ensure that the young men of today and the future men of tomorrow will be able to be in environments where they're able to be healthily masculine and not be shamed for it. And although we are in the age where there's a lot more of a push for young women to be pushed to the front, I think we're also kind of forgetting that young men are kind of being left to their own devices, quite literally, and are struggling. But what do you think?
And y'all, a guy could talk to me one way very naturally, very themselves, but around their male counterparts, it's like witnessing a completely different person, I'm not gonna lie. And to be honest, in my mind, I can't help but question, like, the version of you that you're showing me, is that authentically you? Or is the exaggerated masculine version of you that I'm witnessing you showcase with your friends or, whatever males that you're around, is that really you? And of course, that would require a lot of discernment or even just giving the person space enough to show you like who they really are. But you can see how that could make a person question like a person's genuineness, or like, is the person that you show me really who you are, or are you what I see with other people? Basically, it's like code switching, but instead of conforming based off of ethnicity, you're conforming by gender. And it's so important to know who you are fellowshipping with. And I'm talking about whether it's you at work or with friends and family and things like that. You have to be really mindful about the people that you keep around you, because they ultimately have a way of shaping who you are, whether it's your personality, your mindset, your behavior. So it is really important to be intentional about the people that you are coming into agreement with. The people around you should be uplifting you you and really encouraging your authenticity and just your growth as a person. So if you have to pretend to be something that you're not in order to associate yourself with certain people, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice because you're putting on a mask just to fit in, and it's just like you're not really being yourself all the way. And it's so important to understand that not everyone shares the same value as you, and you don't want to associate yourself with somebody that will pull you in the wrong direction. And y'all, some people really have warped mindsets that they don't see anything wrong with.
Bro, the best friendships are the ones where you bully each other, I'm telling you, bro. If I see a friend not bully the other friend, I'm gonna think you guys have a fake friendship, because what? What do you mean you don't cuss out your friend? Like, what do you mean you're not racist towards your friend? Like, bro, what? Like, honestly, the best friendships are the ones where you're just rude to them. Like, people look at your friendship and think, there's no way these two are friends. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And just based on that clip, there are so many people that I've experienced who have relationships like this guy is describing. And this goes back to the video that I was discussing where guys don't really know when their friends are not really their friends because they lack emotional availability. Like, y'all friends could low-key resent y'all or even just not like y'all, but y'all be so blind to it because y'all have normalized ideas like this. And I know we're talking about guys right now, but I even had a girlfriend who once thought like this, and I was completely blindsided by it. And I don't even want to say blindsided because, like, of course you pay attention to how other people interact with other people, but I mean, like, in terms of like my relationship with her, I feel like out of everybody that we were friends with, I had like the healthiest relationship with her. From my opinion, we didn't argue, we never fought. At least from my side, there wasn't any type of like weird, shady, talk behind your back type of vibes. But one day she had told me how she feels like our friendship isn't solid because we've never argued or we never fought, or, you know, like, basically we never fell out in order for us to get back together to show like, all right, this is solid. When she was describing this, she was basically trying to say like, until that happens, then in her mind that's like solidifying the bond of our relationship. But I was just so confused because I'm like, girl, what? I've never heard of this before. Because I grew up with the idea of, if I have to fight my friend, like if you push me to that point of me wanting to fight you, I cannot be your friend. Like, I'm not gonna fight you and then we're gonna be friends after that. I had a friend push me to that point before, and I knew like, all right, I'm getting to a point where I gotta end this friendship because I want to put my hands on you, but I don't want to put my hands on nobody, right? But I've witnessed so many people fight their friends, like really fight, like you putting your hands on them, beating them up, and then you want to be friends with them after that. Like, I can't look at you the same. So to be honest, once she told me that, I was just like, damn, like that's toxic. And like I said, from my perspective, we have the most healthiest dynamic amongst the friendship group. So for you to be questioning my friendship with you was just like, what the heck? But like I said, it just goes to show like people have certain mindsets, and it's just like you're not always going to come into agreement with everybody. So you don't have to like mold yourself in order to fit that. And since childhood, boys often hear phrases like, don't be a sissy, man up, or don't cry. And who says it? Fathers, coaches, brothers, mentors, friends. Boys learn early that masculinity is not just who you are, but it's something you perform in order to get the approval of other men. And you would be surprised how many guys embody fear in order to gain respect from other guys, versus understanding that you can gain genuine respect by showing up respectfully and authentically. And you don't have to take my word for it, but let's hear other people's opinions and just their perspectives on this topic.
Here's how patriarchy controls and harms men. You may hear that patriarchy privileges men and that makes you feel upset and frustrated because you're unhappy. That's because while you do get some privileges, the patriarchy is a system that is constantly attacking your masculinity. You are not allowed to do anything except be angry and work. Going to coffee shops is for girls. Using soap makes you gay. Anything but NASCAR sports and Marvel and Star Wars are for chicks. Buying clothes is gay. Being attractive to women is gay. Having a little sweet treat is for pussies. You are not allowed to do anything without feeling a hit to your masculinity. And that constant low-grade antagonism, those relentless attacks erode your self-esteem, make you insecure, and make you vulnerable to your own frustration. Because technically, men aren't supposed to feel anything but anger. So when you deny having any other feeling, When you have that feeling, invariably, you don't have any skills to deal with it. Because having emotional skills, going to therapy, doing any kind of introspection is for chicks and gays. You don't even get to learn how to deal with your anger because angry outbursts are masculine. So you are trained by the patriarchy to be a ticking time bomb. That means all the people around you wrap you in foam, walk on eggshells, do everything they can to keep from setting you off. And that turns you into an agent of the patriarchy and the status quo. You blow up on people when they don't follow the rules, when they don't give you what you want. You are programmed to have a low tolerance for distress. That's why you're always resentful. That's why you're always frustrated. That's why you're scared, and you're not allowed to admit you're scared. And that also means because everyone is ensconcing you in foam, no one can touch you. Being caressed is for women and queers. Children are held. Sex is reduced to the orgasm and nothing else. No intimacy is allowed. Intimacy is for chicks and queers. You are systematically denied happiness. You exist to work and protect the system that abuses you. You have been systematically denied healthy masculinity and instead assigned a toxic masculinity that keeps everyone at arm's length. I am so sorry that this is happening to you. If I could snap my fingers and save you, I would. You deserve to be held. You deserve to be spoken to honestly. You deserve a little sweet treat. You deserve to look cute. And you deserve to feel emotions other than anger. But you have the power to change it. It's just gonna feel worse before it feels better.
Men are scared of men. They are terrified of each other. And they're also the only people that they are performing their masculinity to and for. It's for this that it has always been such a logical fallacy that men blame women for their feelings of emasculation when the criteria by which they judge their masculinity is through the eyes of other men. And the only things that can meaningfully threaten them in the world outside of victimization in childhood and things like that is literally other men. And again, please, if you're watching this, don't misunderstand me to say that men cannot be victimized by women in like interpersonal, interrelational dynamics. That can happen. But when we're talking about how the patriarchy works and how it upholds itself through the actions of individual men and the collective, this is how and why. The dehumanizing standards that patriarchy demands of men are set and upheld by men. The ways that power in this world is brokered in violence and dominance is upheld by men. And men continue to seek, even if they are unable to fully access the social rewards of that. And so the racial dynamic of this is really important to consider. That the most powerful man in the world is a wealthy white man, something a black man will never ever be. And in their attempt to access the social rewards of a white supremacist patriarchal system, they have to sell themselves out in their communities too. But because of the way that masculinity is conditioned and upheld by men, towards men, they also don't understand that the ladder that they're trying to climb comes at their own expense as well. And that same power is the only power under patriarchy and white supremacy that can be effectively leveraged against them to harm them. And I think this is why men feel so comfortable creating this story of ongoing victimization at the smallest boundary or request for respect from women. Because black men know that their only opportunity to subjugate is to punch down. Their only ability to access the power that they know that they cannot access through the dominant systems of white heteropatriarchy is by punching down. And because they are intimately aware of the social punishments, right, of being not masculine enough, not man enough, that can be imposed on them using violence and dominance by other men, they are so incredibly aware that to make waves in the presence of a man that has more power than them is going to be dangerous. That as long as they're accessing or attempting to access that particular style and type of social reward given through systems of dominance, that they have to essentially avoid making waves. They have to submit in some way. If you're not one of the big dogs, then you are trained and conditioned to know your place in the pecking order through terror and insecurity and fear. The status on each rung of this pecking order is reinforced through humiliation and exclusion and shame. It's for this also that men jump on these podcasts together to degrade and undermine women because they are teaching one another how to subordinate and subjugate for status. I know not all men, but some of these men are actively saying things that they know in their deepest self is wrong as hell, that is not truly in alignment with their values, but they are looking around to other men to see that approval. because that approval is the safety net that protects them from that same humiliation, subjugation, and fear. It's the same with any sort of bully. You strike out first when you have the power to make sure that that same violence is not one day directed at you, because you know if you take a stand and you buck against that grain that it will be. It is a when, not an if. It's for this insults like simp and stuff exist. Even in terms of defending men who have done horrible things, their friends, etc., this fear of breaking rank is so saturated in modern masculinity culture. It's for this that also the concept of just divesting from this doesn't exist. Men cling to these man versus women topics, this concept of gender war, not realizing that they could just divest from it entirely by treating women as human beings. That by simply understanding their own fundamental lack of safety under patriarchy, that they could create solidarity with women and choose a third alternate path. But instead, I think so many men take the easy route. They go with the homies that say, why would you embarrass yourself for a woman when you can stay safe with us, knowing damn well nobody's safe in the first place. And that is a very sad existence. And so when we wonder why men are fragile, why they struggle with this crisis of identity, especially black men, you don't have to look anywhere else but at your own hands and the hands of your homeboys. The spaces that you've never gotten to arrive as a full person, so then you denied that to others as well.
Like, are you holding your boys accountable?
I think men are just afraid of other men. I think that when we ask, are they holding their boys accountable, men are afraid of men. Which then you also have to think of, if you were afraid of other men, how do you think women feel against other men? If you were afraid of other men, because at the time when you watch...
In what way?
In the time that you... Say, like, the videos that you see on, like, public transport, and there's a guy being abusive, and all the guys are sitting there because they're afraid of how violent this guy could be. Meanwhile, he's most likely being violent to a woman. If you are afraid of your own gender, how do you think the opposite gender is feeling against that guy? And then also in the group, men are afraid of other men. Men get a lot of validation from other men.
Yeah, it's very weird.
And they need that. Like, they need that. Like, you can call... they get some validation from women, but the validation they get from women is only then officially validated by other men.
It gets co-signed by
because
men,
if every girl in the room calls you hot, but no guy is there to hear it, then did it really happen? For a guy, no. So your validation comes from men. So if you're scared that if you call out guys, that cuts off your validation from other men, then you're afraid of that, and you're afraid of men. So then how do you think the women feel? If you're so afraid to call out your boys, then how do you think we feel in that? If you're afraid to lose relationships or afraid that you might be shunned, then how do you think women feel, which will be 10 times more if you're then calling out that situation? Like, men are afraid of other men, but then are shocked when we say we're afraid of men.
Men don't just fear men because of violence. Men also fear men because they fear being embarrassed by another man, thus their masculinity being diminished in society, in public perception. It's not just about men fearing violence. They also fear society laughing at them if they challenge a man and it doesn't go well. That saying that goes something like, men fear being embarrassed and being laughed at, women fear being unalived. Yeah, this is it. This is it. Justin Scott made a video where he talked about vague masculinity, where men walk around with these blanket assumptions that because they're men, they should be able to achieve A, B, C, and D. One of those achievements is the assumption that men should be able to protect and defend if ever in a situation that's needed, right? I think a lot of men walk around with the idea that they think that if they were ever in that environment or situation, they'd be able to deliver in that way. However, they simultaneously dodge those situations to avoid it being, to avoid that thought being challenged in reality. I think a lot of these dudes dodge defending women because they fear, if I defend this woman against this dude and he beats my ass in front of everybody, then everyone's going to laugh at me and see me as less of a man. If I, clap back at this dude who's being ruthless with his mouth and he attacks me verbally and he wins, I'm then seen as less of a man. A lot of these dudes are, their masculinity and the social perception of the masculinity is so important to them that they rather go around avoiding it being challenged than to risk it being challenged and that public perception being negatively impacted. It's not just about men fearing violence. They also fear embarrassment. And yes, to them, their embarrassment is just as if, or that fear of embarrassment is just as, if not more valuable than your life as a woman. Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm saying. Yes, ma'am. They're not just worried about their safety. They are worried about their manhood and their ego and pride around their manhood.
And also, another toxic ideology that young boys and men are taught is not breaking bro code. No matter the toxicity or the deception or the manipulation that you see, you are to never speak on it, especially, God forbid, publicly. And unfortunately, most won't even check their male counterparts when witnessing abuse, but instead they will gaslight, deflect, defend them, or even just turn the other cheek.
Men are afraid of men. They're afraid to check other men. They're afraid to get active in the community. They're afraid to even call out other men online, because we live in a society, or we live in a time where men are cyber sucking each other off and only advocating for men, but they're not advocating for women. Men only care about their pain. They won't acknowledge a woman's pain. They won't acknowledge the pain that men have put women through, right? And when you get to talking like this, it's pandering and simping, but that's fine, right? They won't acknowledge the pain and suffering that men have done to women. They won't acknowledge it. But what they will do is this thing called bro code. There's a code to where if you go against men, they'll even ask you, whose side are you on? Like, bro, you over here pandering to women. You trying to get attention from women. Now, let me tell you something. One, that's not true. But as a straight man, why do you want the attention of other men? Why are you in love with male validation as a straight man? And it ain't even about, like, what side you pick, because asking a man like what side are you on, that's stupid. But my thing is, men lie and say that they address both sides. They never address both sides, fam. They never address both sides. They only talk about the woman every time. But they say that they're calling out both. Real men call out both sides. You go to their page, fam, it's nothing but woman, 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 the woman wrong, the woman needs to do this, the women. But then when a man calls out a man and talk about what men need to do, you're pandering. You're freaking pandering, bro. Why you don't talk about these women? What? Men are not allowed to call out other men, because the first thing a man's going to do is bring a woman into a man's conversation. Because men can't take criticism. Because they're soft. Especially the men in my community. Everything is the woman's fault. Then they talk about this harm on both sides. There is more harm with men than women. Men do more harm than women. Majority of all problems are man's fault. Point blank, period. Death, destruction, evilness, all of that mostly through the hands of a man. Mostly through the hands of a man. Miss me with this nonsense. Historically, men have been the problem. The overwhelming majority of the problem historically has been a man. Has been men in general. And then another cop-out thing that these guys talk about, right, is that, well, only 1%, there's always going to be bad men in the world, but only 1% of these men, there's only 1% of bad men, because if you look at how many men are locked up. Fam, do you know how much crime gets done in the States, fam? Police don't catch all the goddamn crime. You guys are idiots. And a lot of times, let's be honest, a lot of you men have done something bad, done something horrible, even sold smugs at one point to your community. You just didn't get caught. Would you then call yourself a good man? Miss me with this nonsense. But we can't talk like this, because everything is fucking pandering. Everything is pandering. Because men are afraid of other freaking men. And y'all got this bro code. Bro code. But no, we got to get these women in order. Bro, listen. Like I said, it doesn't matter what a woman. It don't matter if women are twerking, women are on OnlyFans, women are selling their body. There will always be that pays for it. Because men promote bad behavior. If you want to shut down the bad behavior of women, simply stop putting money behind it. Goodness gracious.
And oftentimes when this happens, it could come across like they are coming into agreement with it and that they don't see anything wrong with it. And some of them don't see anything wrong with it because of what they've been programmed to believe. But it could also be that a lot of them are just afraid of what they might have to face for standing up and actually saying something. Because it's like, imagine, women and children have always been seen as something to be protected by men for as long as time goes back. So if I were to put myself in the shoes of a guy, and for as long as I can remember, like just growing up, hearing about or even witnessing or even experiencing myself, the dangers that women and children often face at the hands of toxic men, for one, I would acknowledge that fear and that caution has been instilled in me from a young age. And also, as I get older within society, while I'm entering adult dominated spaces, it is then where you really truly start to realize the pressures that men face within a patriarchal system, while also acknowledging how you might feel emasculated based on your place within society. So if the ego goes unchecked and it's not in a healthy place, you might feel the need to go gain your masculinity elsewhere, but not in the most healthiest of ways. Or if you're a guy with a healthy ego, you might be able to just observe all of the toxicity going on around you, especially towards the weaker links within society. So it's then fair to have the perception and question, well, if I decide to stand out, what would it be like for a man to now direct that towards me and go man to man? And because you decided to go out of your way to hold somebody accountable, that could possibly lead you into a situation that you might not find most favorable, because who's to say that that guy is not going to feel challenged because you decided to speak up? So now his ego feels like he has to overcompensate to dominate you. He's going to feel like, all right, now I have to exert my masculinity onto you and basically prove my ability to dominate.
Okay, y'all have to stop with this rhetoric. It's stupid. Anybody that has nothing to lose is somebody you should be afraid of. Man or woman. Man or woman. Anybody that has nothing to live for, you should be afraid of, because they have no problem being a real crash out. I know online the term crash out has become just bastardized to where it doesn't mean anything. Bro, there are some people who have nothing to lose in this life and they will do anything. They genuinely do not care. There's some women like that. It's mostly men. Those men are very dangerous. Yes, I'm terrified of those men because I got a lot to live for. Like, you're not going to make me feel bad for having something to live for. Like, okay, and like, yes, I want to make it home today. So when I see the crazy dude in the street waving the gun or whatever, I'm going to let the police do their job and I'm going the other way. I think a lot of y'all, what y'all want men to be is crash dummies. You want us to go out there and run in whatever direction you say. Like, that's what you really want. You don't want accountability. It's not a consistent thing you want for all people, you know? Like, you want a lot of the responsibility and accountability on us, but then you want the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And that's not how none of this works. I refuse to be a crash dummy for any of y'all, for any of the bullshit you stand for. That's your thing. That's your business. Again, I'm going to keep saying this in every video so y'all can clip it up how you want to. I have empathy for women and what they experience. But am I going to sit here and be responsible for other men do? No. Am I going to try to hold all these terrible men in the world accountable? No, I'm not. I'm not. It will never happen. I can tell you most men are not doing that. But stop saying you're just scared of other men, because it doesn't make sense. You're not proving anything by saying that. Like, it's honestly funny, because again, I'm gonna keep saying it. I think some of y'all might live online too much, because some of y'all haven't been out in the real world enough to realize that there's some people who just not right up here, bro. Like, nothing you say or do is gonna change the fact that they're just crazy. Like, that's not gonna change. Hold them accountable. That man is crazy. There's nothing I can say that's not going to make him a killer when he wakes up tomorrow. He's killed 3 people. You think me telling him, don't be a killer, is going to stop him from being a killer? No, he's going to continue to be a killer.
And sometimes some guys might feel like, well, I can step to you. And sometimes some guys might not feel like they can step to them. So it's just like, because I know I can't beat you, let me just, stand back and just be quiet. And this pressure forces so many men to suppress their real emotions. So they might choose anger over sadness, humor over honesty. And unfortunately, this costs them authentic friendships, emotional freedom, or even just mental peace. And in terms of male relationships, it keeps men from supporting each other in deeper ways because everyone is afraid of being the first one to drop the mask.
Today I was talking to a client and he mentioned how hard it was for him to open up and make new friends with guys. He spoke how he's scared of being vulnerable and the possible rejection that he might receive if he, reaches out to guys to make new relationships. And I just, I let him know that, he's not alone in that. Many guys are suffering alone, wanting to have friendships, but society has deemed it socially unacceptable for guys to socialize, to vocalize their feelings and needs with other guys. And I encouraged him, and I want to encourage you, there's no shame in letting another guy know that you need help emotionally and that you want to be there for them and hope they'll be there for you. I mean, it's brave, that's courageous. In our society, men are running away from their emotions, and we teach that is bravery. No, that's cowardice.
And when we acknowledge this fear, we understand that it is not just individual insecurity. It's cultural and societal fear passed down amongst generations. And some other common ways that this can show up in everyday life is, let's say, for example, a young boy witnessing his mom being harmed by another man. And due to feeling helpless and fearing the man, instead of directing the full anger towards the man, oftentimes they develop resentment towards the mother for dealing with the toxicity. Or commonly, guys witnessing their friends being mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially malicious towards women and enabling it versus holding them accountable. And of course, it's not fair that a child that is meant to feel safe around the adults around them has to then feel like they need to be the protector of those same adults. Those kids are just as fearful and vulnerable as those adults being harmed. But my thing is, once you're a man or you're like of a certain age, you shouldn't even be fellowshipping with these type of men, because at that point it's like you aren't a child who is placed in a situation that you don't have a way out of. But you're an adult now that's choosing to be around a person like that. And whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you choosing to be around a person like that, you are an enabler, and you might not be like feeding into the same thing that they're doing, but just by you being a bystander, you are still a part of the problem. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of times when these type of conversations come up and they're having to give a response or something, it often comes across like they don't want to acknowledge that it's even happening. Like, instead of saying like, yeah, I'm validating what you experience while also saying that I'm not that type of person, sometimes it comes across like I'm not that type of person and it's not happening at all, so don't put me in it. But it's just like, it's okay to acknowledge and it's okay to still hold a group of people accountable without internalizing it as if you are a part of the problem, or as if you have to like take on the chaos of whatever is going on, or as if you even have to be the face of having to hold them accountable. You don't have to get on a main stage and say like, hey y'all need to get it together. Like, it would be nice, right? But oftentimes that's not even the extent of what people are asking for. Like, even just to simply acknowledge it and speak up about it, say like within your immediate vicinity, guys wouldn't even want to do that. And it's so funny because so many guys talk about loyalty, but many of them lack it. Like, one thing I never understood is, how are you shysty towards the person that you're in a relationship with? Again, a lot of people are not intentional about their relationship, so I get that aspect, right? But it's just like, let me know if I'm bugging. I have this standard of, if you're a cheater, I can't be friends with you. Like, I can't hold space for you in my life. You could be the coolest person ever, but I won't get close enough with you, or I'm gonna have to cut my ties in the relationship, because it's just like, if you could be ruthless to a person that you have so close to you, then it's just like, I don't know what to expect from you. And if I could see you being like crazy towards other people, that's just a reflection of your character. And it's like, y'all have mothers, sisters, friends. How would y'all feel if somebody was treating them the way that y'all witness y'all friends, or even how y'all be treating people? But let's say you don't even have close relationships with women, right? As a human being, where is the compassion? Would y'all want somebody treating y'all the way that y'all be witnessing your friends, or even how y'all be treating other people? No. And my thing is, y'all love bro code so much, but how do y'all have respect for y'all friends that y'all know be moving crazy out here? Like, it just don't make sense to me. It's like blind loyalty. That's what it be giving. And I've even had guys who lacked healthy male guidance admit to me that they looked up to the toxic men within their communities that they perceived to have respect, which wasn't qualified by the men's good actions or how respectable they were, but it was qualified by how other men responded to him. And without good male guidance, a lot of guys are led astray, while lacking true understanding of earning respect through integrity.
Come on, attack him. Come on, attack. Got to get over it. Engage. If you don't, the enemy comes again. He has no mercy. Get up. You got to get over it. Attack. There you go. Look at me. It's a fear. I got to get it out of you, because now you're going to always be angry at the wrong people. We're trying to help you. You're angry at us. We can't let you hold it. You tough, strong. Good. Now relax, take it. There you go. Get up, come on. Attack. Come on. Good. Now do me. Come on. Come in strong. That's what I need. Strength. Good. Take it. Strong. Yeah. Come on, take it. We know why you're angry, but you got to use that on the right people, not us. We love you. You got it? You got it. There you go. Look at me. And I ain't gonna hurt you. This guy. I want you to respect me because you care about me, not because you're scared of me. You got it? All right.
But the reality is, it all comes down to an individual's self-love and self-respect, because then that ultimately affects how you perceive things, the relationships that you come into agreement, but also the things that you just tolerate and that you allow to, you know, like manifest around you. And if men want to heal, they don't just need acceptance from women. They need brave, honest, accountable, and supportive brotherhood from each other. And since we're on the topic of brotherhood, let's discuss fraternities. Similar to gangs, where a lot of guys tend to join to fill voids, whether they're desiring protection and respect, guys usually join frats in order to grow bonds and connections amongst other men. But why does that connection have to be solidified through proving your worth by your way of enduring abuse through bullying and hazing? Whether those hardships are mental, emotional, physical, or even spiritual, why can't you guys just create a safe space for each other? And I'm not saying they don't exist, right? But we're talking about the majority right now. You know, like a space where you don't have to exert your dominance over one another to create a hierarchy.
This is why I will never understand fraternities or hazing or anything of that nature. This guy right here, his name was Danny, and he was 18 years old, attending the University of Missouri, not knowing that this one particular fraternity hazing event would lead to his life being forever changed. Now, this happened in 2021, and he was forced to drink 1 liter of vodka by himself, and he was seen on CCTV footage being carried downstairs. Now, this had happened after he was being forced to go into a thing of broken glass, leaving him basically in crutches. But this particular evening, he was caught on CCTV footage being carried around onto a couch on CCTV footage, and then he was being dragged into a car, and I think he fell out the car at one point, and then he was taken to the hospital. At this point, he was already in cardiac arrest by the time he had got to the hospital. He was in a coma for a long time. He finally was able to get out of the coma. Unfortunately, he lost his ability to see, brain function, and this is him now, y'all. This is so sad. Please do not let fraternity, hazing, or any of that kind of stuff affect your life, because this is crazy to me. Like, this is not hazing, this is torture.
Hazing never made sense to me. Like, I'm talking about as far back as I can really remember. Like, any of that being in the frat stuff, it just never made sense. Like, what do you mean I gotta just get embarrassed and bullied for y'all to accept me into y'all club? What do you mean at minimum I'm doing something super zesty, and at maximum I'm doing something that would put me in a casket? And the worst part about it is the number of dudes who would join those things, and the number of girls who joined the sororities who thought it made them cool or something like that. It's like, bruh, y'all let them shove stuff in your third pocket so y'all can shake shoulders with them. And it should go without saying, nobody deserves to die at the hands of something stupid like this. Listen, if you in your beginning years of college, and right now you thinking that you absolutely need to join one of these little groups, one of these little clubs, if they talk to you about a hazing ritual, yeah, you need to go ahead and bounce, yo. I promise you, it's not that deep. It's never that deep, yo. I promise you, somebody who's not a weirdo doesn't want to do this to strangers. They just don't.
I ain't gonna lie, y'all gonna be pissed off when I say this, but I'm just keeping it real. We was talking about in Bible study how that kid had lost his life in Louisiana for that whole fraternity hazing and all of that stuff. Let me just say, what do I look like sacrificing my body for an X amount of period of time to join your friend club? Let's just keep it a buck. It's just a friend club. It's a glorified friend club. I don't care what you call it. Omega this, and that, Kappa this. I don't care, bro. It's just I'm joining your friend club. That's all that is. So what do I look like sacrificing myself, going through all of this trauma to be a part of it, to do what in the end? Get something on my arm, hold up signs, chant, sing, do rituals? What that sound like to you? That's a conversation for another day. If the God Almighty has never asked me to do such things to follow him, what makes you think that I'm gonna do that for you?
And the crazy thing is, some of you guys don't even see it as a problem. And some even feel honored to go through that gruesome process because to them, it solidifies their manhood. It validates them to say, wow, I was able to endure this from other men, and this is what men have to go through. So now I'm a man by way of that. But it's because of the immediate stamp of approval from their frat brothers. And if you want to think bigger, then think about their legacy or other alumni that graduated prior to them, other Greek organizations, or even just their perceived badge of honor within society. So frankly, whether it's a subconscious or a conscious knowing, joining usually comes from a space of seeking approval, but also respect and safety from other men. And unfortunately, if guys were to ever call out or hold other men accountable, they will be ostracized or called weak. Or they'll be clowned by other men and they'll be called simps. And it's usually the guys who you would deem to be toxic because they don't want to be exposed, or they don't want like their game to be called out by other men and exposed publicly, because then if somebody knows your playbook, then the game is done. But then again, hey, and this is because they know what they are up against based off of them witnessing, but also their own experiences by way of other men. And this even extends to like toxic relationships amongst men and women, where men might tolerate or even keep quiet about the abuse from women. And it's not even necessarily to protect the woman, but it's usually to protect their manhood.
This is the reality that we have to understand when it comes to men being abused in their relationships and marriages. Number one, men don't speak out. Men don't talk about what they're going through because they're afraid they're going to be judged by their friends, their family, and their coworkers. If a man opens up and says, hey, I'm being abused, I'm being gaslit, I'm being manipulated, I'm being abused emotionally, psychologically, most likely his friends are going to tell him to man up, to just let it go, that that's just how she is. But if a man is truly being abused, a lot of times he's not believed. He's not believed by the courts. He's not believed by the cops. He's not believed by lawyers. He's not believed by therapists. So men just shut their mouth, bury it down deep inside of them until they get to a point where they just don't want to live anymore. And that is the reality. That is the harsh reality we need to understand about men who are abused in marriages and relationships. Men who are abused psychologically, emotionally, physically, and even sexually. They don't talk about it because they don't want to seem weak, and they know that no one's going to believe them and no one's really going to care. That's the truth. That's the reality. And I know I'm going to have tons of women in my comments gaslighting me, telling me that I'm wrong, telling me that men don't get abused, that women have it so much worse. Here's what you have to understand. We're all human beings. Anyone who is abused in any way deserves compassion, empathy, and understanding, whether they're a man or a woman. So I don't want to hear about it because men get abused every single day and we act like it never happens.
And the strange thing is, some men would ridicule other men for even speaking up with the mindset of, oh, you're a man, like you can't handle that, or like you shouldn't even be complaining, when it's just like that man being brave enough to speak up is enough, okay? But I guess that would just take any healthy-minded person to really acknowledge and understand the toxicity that comes from certain behaviors and mindsets, and loving themselves enough to not have to deal with it. And also, let's be completely honest from another perspective. If you see how like all of the world is run off of just the toxicity, and you see the domination is going on all over the place, you as a man might feel like, if you're a good guy, right? And when I say good guy, I'm not talking about like pretend nice guy. I'm talking about like if you're a decent person, you don't have to be perfect because nobody's perfect. But I mean, like, if you're a decent guy, you operate out of integrity. You might not get it right all the time, but you're still a decent human being. I just feel like they might get to a space where you see how toxic the guys are out here, where it's just like, I don't even have hope in the world to even feel like my voice is strong enough to speak up and actually create some sort of change or even influence anybody. For example, if you see 80% corruption in the world, right? And then over time within society, during your time span of living, you feel like the corruption is increasing even more to, let's say now 90%. It's reasonable for a human being to notice that type of change within their time span of observation on this earth, to say like, you know what, maybe it's just a lost cause to even speak up because people aren't going to listen anyways and things aren't going to change because there are still other people on the other side that's going to uphold the toxicity. But my thing is, even if you can't change the whole world, you can still be a positive influence to one person, and when you speak positively into that one person and you guide them in the right way, even if it's like in the tiniest way, that person can then go and be a positive influence to other people, and it just continues to branch off until, you know, it's like a virus, it spreads. But we want good viruses to spread, not the toxic ones. Listen, y'all, small changes are better than having to stay stagnant or even just going to full corruption, because y'all, it's getting bad out here. Use your voice for something meaningful and be that guy to somebody. Like, be what you wish somebody was to you for someone else. And be that for yourself as well. Because the reality is, a lot of these young boys, or even just men, because I feel like you're never too old to learn, but there are so many people out here that haven't had like the best influences, or, you know, they've had certain experiences in life and it could have warped their minds in a negative way. And I feel like people are looking for guidance, people are looking for advice and don't really have it in their immediate circles. So a lot of people are out here on these internet streets, and y'all can all see it's ghetto in these internet streets with all these red pillars and so many guys with podcasts that I feel like have corrupted the minds of young men. And it's so sad because it's like, you guys haven't even given them a chance to actually experience life in a positive way and hopefully get better experiences than you have. But it's just like, I'm gonna give you a toxic mind from the start, so that way you're not really given like a good chance. And I feel like, guys, do y'all not see how sometimes, and I'm talking to the toxic guys, right? For the good men out there, God bless y'all, okay? God bless. But for the toxic guys, like, y'all probably not even watching this video. But my thing is, y'all are literally corrupting society, and I feel like, does it make you feel good to do that? There are so many young people who are lacking healthy guidance, but unfortunately they are coming online to seek that guidance, and there are toxic people poisoning their mind. And for an adult, you might say like, okay, it is your responsibility to really discern the information that you're taking in and choose what to not take on because you know that it's toxic, right? But as a young person and you don't really have a full understanding of the world, and you're looking up to an adult who is telling you so firmly, so confidently, this is how the world is, this is how you need to operate, but it's coming from a toxic place, kids don't have that discernment to say, I'm not gonna follow that. Like, it's not to say that they don't, but like, again, you're looking up to a grown adult who other people you see are looking up to, so you're going to follow that just to protect yourself. But it's like, you're not protecting yourself. And to be honest, it's just not fair to them, because it's like, you didn't even get a good shot at life yet. And it's one thing to take on advice to prepare yourself or just mentally keep it in the back of your head, like, okay, there's these types of people out here, but to say that you're going to like turn into like this evil villain to protect yourself, I just feel like that's not the best way to go about it. And it's so important to have better role models, because y'all, and again, I'm not saying that there aren't good role models out here, but I'm talking about what we see being displayed on social media just in a larger scale compared to, say, good role models. Because I've seen some phenomenal, great role models, right? But like, young boys and men need better role models, healthy-minded men that they can look up to and actually feel like, all right, this is great guidance for me to follow to live a better, healthier life. Because the reality is, it makes such a huge difference on their life perspective, but also the decisions that they end up making down the line.
Young boys need way better role models. Have you ever wondered why there's so many men today walking around with such cynical views on life, family, and marriage? Why work ethic and morals are so low? Why it's so hard to keep one man faithful to one woman? The biggest reason why men are failing in society today is because society failed us when we were young boys. Statistically, men had very little positive influences in their lives growing up. I am not talking about the people that you see on TV. I'm talking about the men closest to us while we were growing up. They are the ones who have the most significant impact on us. Me, I consider myself to be one of the lucky few. Growing up, the most positive influence in my life was my father. That brother was not without his faults, but he did teach me what it is to be a man. Pick things up when you see them on the floor. Don't wait for the next person to do it. When something is wrong, you speak up. One of the most hardworking men I know, and he never complained once about going to work. He was grateful that he was able to. But it wasn't just my father. I grew up around other men who also valued and loved their families. That they don't play no games when it comes to their kids and their wives. And today, as a man who has my own family, my own home to take care of, I owe a big part of my success to their positive influence over me. What breaks my heart is that my case was not the rule, it's the exception. And the consequences are there. We see why men are so hesitant to commit to one woman. So many brothers are not aspiring to be better versions of themselves. And that can't keep happening. We need better role models for the young boys growing up. If you're a father, be there for your kids. If you have younger brothers, teach them values and morals. Be the role model that you wished you had when you were growing up.
And y'all, I'm not saying that you can't play into the system that we're already living in, because we're already living in it, right? So it's like you can't just say you're going to change the rules completely and things are going to go your way. But I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm saying like sometimes you got to play the game, but there's a way of going about playing the game. I'm not going to sit here and be like naive about that. You have to learn how to play the game without compromising or traumatizing yourself, whether it's by your own hands or by the hands of other people just to fit in, where you're ultimately not even comfortable within yourself. And something I had to learn early on as a naive, good intentioned person, learn the mind and the ways of toxic people, but never become them. Be a light that you can be comfortable living, that you can look at yourself in a mirror and say, I'm proud of the person that I am. Even if you're not yet the person that you want to become, that you see yourself being, be confident in who you are and radiate that light in the world. But also understand that we live in a toxic world. So just because you're radiating doesn't mean everybody's gonna come and be like, oh, la la loopsy, whatever with you, right? People are going to want to dim your light because they are not fully happy within themselves, or they might resent you for even being like able to still radiate light even despite your negative experiences within life. The fact that you're still able to say like, all right, I fell, but let me get up, dust myself off, and continue shining and go about my business. Some people will not like that, but you cannot give them that power to say like, I'm now gonna turn into this evil villain because somebody did it to me. Like, no, you don't allow misery to corrupt you, because then they win. You never let them win. You are supposed to be the person who's winning, and you will feel like you're a winner when you feel good within yourself and you know you're operating out of integrity and you know that you moving in life and you're pacing yourself, balancing yourself to really ultimately experience the best reality that you can experience. So don't ever let anybody make your light dark and dingy because their life is dark and dingy, because they didn't allow themselves to be themselves authentically, because they have this fear of showing up as themselves because they're going to be judged by people who ultimately don't even like themselves. Let's be honest, right? And I'm not saying this to be like judgmental to anybody. Some people are struggling within themselves. I give grace for that. But I feel like my grace goes out the window when you're struggling with yourself, but then you're projecting onto other people and you are trying to intentionally make them miserable because you feel like shit inside. That's where I have the problem. So those are the people I'm talking about. Do not let them make your life dark and dingy, because then you are allowing them to win. You are to never let them win. You hear me? And the reality is, when you are like showing up in this way where you don't look like you're beaten down, or you're able to still keep a smile and still, you know, like just be a positive person, some guys don't like that because they have experienced things in life that they feel like it's not fair that you're still able to have a smile on your face, or you're still able to really just like be positive in life, some people will resent you for that. And because they don't feel like that in their life, they're gonna want to make you miserable. And I just think that it's not fair. And back to my video where I said some guys can also be haters to other guys, right? I feel like with guys, you have to be really mindful of this, because somebody could come in and play mentor to you, or play like, oh, I'm your friend, I'm one of the guys, when whole time he's just trying to, you know, play all buddy with you just to rip you down. And some of y'all don't see that, because like I said, y'all lack that emotional availability, y'all lack the discernment, and you guys are honestly sometimes out of touch to where you can't really see when a person is playing in your face until they turn you into who they are, disguised as your friend and somebody who just wants to protect you and wants you to realize the reality of the world and how you don't need to get taken advantage of. Those will be the very same guys that will turn you into them, because again, misery loves company. So be careful. There are some fathers, some mentors who look at the younger boys, whether it's their sons or their mentees or whatever they are to them, right? They'll look at them and feel like this resentment towards them because they see their innocence compared to, say, like all of the heavy burdens that they feel like they're carrying. So instead of them letting you live out your innocence and guiding you in a positive way, those men are oftentimes like jealous of the younger folks, and they will do things to corrupt you, to not really give you a better chance at life, because they don't have that for themselves. So you have to be really careful. So the fear men carry is not just personal. It's something that's passed down and reinforced and kept alive every time a man laughs at something, laughs off cruelty, shame, softness, or even rewarding only the performance of toughness. But what if that all changed? Real brotherhood is not about protecting each other's masks. It's about holding each other accountable more often, to be more honest, to be more vulnerable, to be more compassionate, and to be more human. And this might look like calling out the cruel joke instead of joining in, or asking a friend how he really feels, even if it might feel uncomfortable, or letting your brother, your friend, or your son know that respect and love isn't tied to masculine or how strong or how stoic you pretend to be. Men fear other men because for generations, they are who's been policing their softness. But men can also free each other by choosing to see, protect, and uplift each other's humanity. But listen, it won't happen overnight. But every time a man chooses compassion over cruelty, honesty over silence, and accountability over ego, we can as a society move closer to a world where men don't have to fear other men just to belong. So again, masculinity does not have to be a performance. So not enduring and holding a person accountable does not make you weak. Speaking up and defending yourself or someone else does not make you weak. In fact, it takes strength and courage to do that, especially against your male counterparts. Real strength is letting yourself be human and allowing the people around you to also show up authentically as themselves without having to put on this front or this persona in order to be accepted and respected. But anyways, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I thank you for watching. And if you guys have any other things that you guys want to share as men or just even as women, please drop it below in the comments, and let's get this conversation started. Because y'all know when they say like 100 men versus one bear, listen, y'all men, if y'all were on the other end of it, y'all would choose the bear as well. Let's be honest. Men know that men are vicious. So listen, I get it. Men fear other men. And I'm not blaming y'all at all, because a toxic man is a dangerous man. So I completely get why men fear other men, because that's the men that we're talking about in this video, right? We're not talking about the decent guys, the good guys to be something that you're fearful of. No, we're talking about men fear toxic men, and rightfully so. And just observing the state of the world right now, men and women are so busy attacking each other, but can we just like step back for a second and hold ourselves accountable individually, but also like as genders? Like, let's acknowledge that women know women better than men know women, and men know men better than women know men. So if we could acknowledge our own feelings and our experiences amongst the genders that we are, it's like fix what's in the house first and then step out the house and then fix what's in the world. You get what I'm saying? But anyways, I thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.